Welcome to Real People, Real Stories podcast. I'm Rena, your host, and today I'm presenting you another real life story. My guest is Timmerman. Rand is a Vietnam War combat veteran who, at the age of 72, took on one of the biggest challenges of his life, hiking the entire Appalachian Trail. What began as a way to support his brother through grief and to continue his own recovery from alcoholism became a journey that changed both of their lives. In this episode, we talk about military service, life after war, addiction loss, brotherhood, and how a 1,100-mile hike became a powerful path to both healing and meaning. Hello, Rand.
Hi, Reina. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining and for willing to share your story. As you understand, I have a lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning. You mentioned you served in Vietnam. After the war, you came back home. What happened? How your life has unfolded?
Oh, yes, that was amazing. So I grew up in a very poor family in upstate New York. My father had been a Mustang pilot during World War II, and then he came home and had polio and ended up paralyzed from the waist down. A year in the hospital, 8 months in an iron lung. So around 5 years old, I became aware I was in a kind of a bad situation. You know, all my clothes had patches on them, and we were very poor, and my dad was a hard worker. I just felt like God had really messed us over somehow, like we'd done something wrong, right? So my escape was to enlist in the Marine Corps in 1966. I did go to college briefly, but I was working nights as a janitor. I had 3 jobs. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a lost soul. My younger brother, Ron, when he graduated from high school a year after me, he enlisted in the Army and went to Vietnam. So I got drunk one night, and when I came to in the morning, the owner of the bar turned the radio on, and they were talking about the 1st Marine Division being in Vietnam. I made a decision to go enlist in the Marine Corps. And a month later, I was at the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York, my hand up in the air, promising to defend my country against enemies, foreign and domestic. And 6 months later, I'm with the 1st Marine Division in Vietnam in a rice paddy thinking I might have made a mistake. That's how I ended up in the Marine Corps.
That's quite a story, but maybe you're not the only one who enlisted in such way or who has been enlisted in such way. So you went to Vietnam as a Marine, you served some years, you came back. The situation in your family was not easy financially wise. So what happened? Why you decided not to continue to serve in army and decided to go back to normal life, if I can say so?
Right. Well, when I was in Vietnam, the last couple of months, they made me what they called a Mustang lieutenant. So I was an officer for a couple of months. And then I like to say that the Marine Corps almost got me killed about 20 times, and then it gave me a career. It was just unbelievable what happened. But at the time, I had no idea what was going to happen. So when I left Vietnam, a colonel said to me, well, you can go back and then you'll be a corporal again and you'll get out of the Marine Corps, or you can go to officer training school and end up being a real live officer. So I went to Quantico, Virginia, a Marine Corps base there, and did all the officer training, which was like 9 months. And now I'm a real 2nd lieutenant. I'm an officer. I'm the same as the guys that went to college, got a degree, and then became officers, except I don't have the college degree. And I decided I didn't want to be a grunt anymore. I did not want to be in the infantry. So I decided to go into the air wing. I had actually served on a helicopter unit in Vietnam as a machine gunner, door gunner for a while. So I knew a little bit about it. So when I got all done with the officer training, I went to Cherry Point, Marine Corps Air Station, and there was... This was a miracle, Rena. It was unbelievable. One of my drill instructors in boot camp had become a Mustang lieutenant, and he ended up being a Mustang captain. And when I checked into Cherry Point, he was the officer of the day. And we did the whole hugs and, thing, and really happy to see each other. And he said, do you want to go to a school? And I said, I don't know. What are you talking about? And he had a list, and he said Rhode Island. All I said was, Rena, I've never been to Rhode Island before. What's that one? He says, it's a JAG school. It's a school for legal officers in the United States Marine Corps. I said, I'll go. And I went over there, and there was 100 in our class. 99 of them were honest to God, real lawyers. who are all captains because they made them captains in order to get their pay up there so they'd stay in the Marine Corps. And I was the lowly second lieutenant. But I was a combat Marine, so they kind of looked up to me for that, but they thought I was like a lost cause or something. But anyway, so I decided not to drink at all during this period, and I was just going to study because I don't know, I was intrigued with it. And I ended up being the class honor man. I got the highest score of all of them. So I finished out my Marine Corps career as a JAG officer, it's Judge Advocate General. It's a legal officer. You can do defense or prosecution. And it gave me a track. I got married, had my first child. When I got out, I went to Syracuse University and got a BA in political science. And I went to law school and I graduated summa cum laude. So the Marine Corps almost killed me, and then it gave me a gift. Amazing.
That is definitely amazing. Yes, we all know that in the Vietnam War, a lot of soldiers has fight. First of all, it's a miracle that you came back alive, and secondly, the captain gave you a new direction in your career. And let me understand, you studied to be a lawyer for the military, in simple words.
That's correct, yes.
You worked as a lawyer for the military, but then you studied additional be a lawyer for civil cases.
Yes, I wanted to be a lawyer. It gave me the stepping stone to being a lawyer in the civilian world. I could do criminal or civil law, of course, but I had to get a college education first, and I had to go to law school. I had a couple of kids. I did all that. I was working part-time the whole time because the GI Bill didn't pay for even the tuition at Syracuse, so I had to work also. I was a busy boy.
Yes, but this paid off after all, but I'm just curious because you basically studied law twice. So which one you enjoyed the most?
Both, actually. I mean, being a legal officer in the military is quite a bit different than being a lawyer out in the real world, so to speak. It's Article 32 UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, and it's kind of limited. Juries are not a jury of your peers. It's, the officers, usually a colonel, a major, a captain, maybe a lieutenant. It was a different ball game, but I learned the skill set. I defended people first, and then I had a couple of acquittals, which were kind of unheard of. And so they made me a prosecutor. That's how you solve that problem. And so I had experience on both sides, both tables, if you will, in a courtroom. And I loved it. I was good at it. I had no idea. I could have been a truck driver or something if that hadn't happened. I would never have realized my potential, probably.
Because that could be one of my questions. From your story, that happened everything it happened unexpected. It was suggestion and you thought, why not? And you went and you did it and you liked it. And then you thought, okay, I want also to work as a lawyer for civilians, not military. And you did it again. You went, you studied, you finished, and you worked. And if you would have any other profession, and if you did not went to Vietnam War, if you didn't enlist it, who knows which profession you could have.
Correct. That's right. Absolutely. And I also they gave me the chance to go back home in upstate New York, and I had my office in Watertown. I was self-employed. In the beginning, a struggling lawyer with a family and everything's kind of hard, but I had some mentors, some men that helped me. I had a friend in the Marine Corps who was a lawyer in Syracuse. He kind of took me under his wing. His name was Dick Sargent, and just showed me the way. And, I had a great career. I was doing defense work mostly in the beginning, and then I did a murder trial. And, you get on TV and newspapers and all that, and a lot of publicity. And there's an old saying in the legal business that it's not whether you win or lose a case, it's that you have the cases and you're on TV and doing stuff like that. To some extent, that's true. But I had a good reputation, and I had a great career. I really did. I loved it for the most part, and it was a blessing, huge blessing in my life.
I'm glad you found your way and you did enjoy what you're doing, because as you know, not everyone is happy with their profession or they don't enjoy. So it's a true blessing when someone finds this purpose this place where a person belongs and can bloom and show the talent.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Let me ask this. What was happening in your life that made the Appalachian Trail feel like the right step at that moment?
That was another miracle beyond anything I ever comprehended. I had an affinity for alcohol, as you could tell from using it to make a decision about going into the Marine Corps, and I used it to make other decisions, usually bad. I knew I had a potential problem. It really didn't bother me a whole lot for many years. I ran 26 marathons. I did a bunch of cross-country ski races. I was one of those weekend warrior type guys, and I dragged my kids along and all that kind of stuff. And while I was busy, it wasn't a problem, but later on, kids are gone. I'm getting older. And alcohol took on a part of my life that really got bad at the very end. Plus, both my brother and I had trauma from the Vietnam War. And Ronnie always had a spiritual. He became a bishop in the Mormon church. He married Edie, who had 7 kids when he married her, and they ended up with 27 grandchildren, and now they have 30 great-grandchildren. And they moved to Utah, and Edie, Ronnie's wife, when she died, he was just devastated. And this was in 2017. And he'd lived on the West Coast, most of his adult life, and I was on the East Coast, so we really didn't see each other only about one day a year. And but when Edie died, I was kind of worried because I could tell on the phone he wasn't, he was struggling. And I called him and I asked him, "What are you gonna do, bro?" And he goes, "I'm gonna walk the Appalachian Trail." And I thought, "Oh my God, that's insane," because I had hiked sections in the Smoky Mountains. I did a warrior type weekend, go up there by myself, hike for 2 or 3 days in the mountains and come back out. Ronnie was doing the same thing in Utah to some extent. So we both had kind of a background for it, but at 72 and 71 years old, it seemed impossible. So I ended up going out there in January of 2018 and walking with him the desert, trying to help him figure out what he wanted to do. And he had his mind made up, Rena. He said, "I'm going to walk the Appalachian Trail." I said, "Hey, bro, that's when?" He goes, "March 22nd. I go, "This year?" And he goes, "Yes." And I said, "I'll go with you." "You will?" "Yeah, I will, bro." I couldn't let him go alone. I just knew. I asked him, "How's he going to do it?" He said, "I'm going to get on a bus, go down to Springer Mountain, Georgia, and start walking." Well, the Appalachian Trail is 2,200 miles from Springer Mountain, Georgia, to Katahdin Mountain in Maine. It goes over 600 mountains. It's 2,200 miles long. It has almost 500,000 feet of elevation changes. It is the longest footpath-only trail in the world, and it's a bear. It's an absolute bear. 3 million people hike on it every year, but only about 2,500 to 3,000 actually try to do the whole thing. Right? Of that, 17% make it. That's like 500 people, right? I mean, this is almost impossible. And that's how I felt about it too, actually. But we did it. I wrote a book about it. It's got 500 pictures in it. It describes what we did each day and shows the pictures, and it describes how I got sober and and we talk about Ronnie's, the grief and how we handled that. And we had spiritual experiences on the trail itself too that were unbelievable. And they're in the book. And it was the hardest thing I ever did with nobody shooting at me. It was really, really hard. But it was also gloriously beautiful and wonderful and amazing, with amazing people, amazing animals. Just, oh my God, so special.
It sounds really special. I wanted to ask, did you meet some other hikers on this trail during your hiking? And also, I read that usually take between 5 and 7 months to do the whole trail. How long it took you?
Actual hiking, it was about 9 months, but it took us 3 years altogether. We went 1,400 and we made it into New Jersey, 1,500 plus miles the first year. But in the summertime, it was like 100 degrees, 100% humidity. Both lost 35 pounds and we were struggling pretty bad. We were down to high school weight. And I don't know, one day I came out, my brother was standing there waiting for me, and he said, "Do you want to go home?" And I said, "Okay." I mean, we were just exhausted. But then the next year he said, "You want to try to finish it?" And I said, "Sure." And we went back and we did some more. I fell down a mountain in Massachusetts, Wilcox Mountain, on a rock slide and got hurt real bad and ended up. So I did 1,800 and I think it was 63 miles. And Ronnie finished it with his oldest son, Rick, who was 62. And they made it to Catadin Mountain the next year. But and I ended up with a hip replacement. I actually walked 300 miles after I fell down Wilcox Mountain. When we got into the Whites, which is in New Hampshire, the steepest mountains, Mount Washington, famous for its highest wind speed ever, gets snow every month of the year. We got there, we had to go around it, and then we had to go back. And then that's when my pain from that fall on that rock side, I couldn't even sleep anymore. It was just incredible. I cried my eyes out right on the day I told my brother I can't do it anymore. I couldn't.
Yeah, that was probably not the right decision. You should have gone to hospital before the 3,000 miles. I'm glad that you fixed your hip after the trail and that your brother with his son, they made it till the other end of it. A question. There are several long-distance hiking trails around the world that are similar to the Appalachian Trail in terms of length, challenge, and immersive nature experience. So why your brother choose this one? Is it because it's in the US that it was local, so it was easy accessible?
Yes, I think that just the challenge of it, for sure, is most long distance hiker feel that the Appalachian Trail is the most challenging one. There's the Pacific Coast one, but it's actually longer, but it's not near as, not that many elevation changes. The Appalachian Mountains are real mountains. I mean, there's rock slides everywhere. There's bears. We saw bears a lot. You get really sick of bears because that could be a problem. They like to fake charge sometimes. I've done fake charges with bears. That's no fun at all. A lot of poisonous snakes. I have a lot of pictures of bears and snakes and things in the book. There's some amazing stories there, encounters with rattlers and stuff like that. I mean, it's amazing. Absolutely. And as far as we met a lot of hikers. We all had trail names, and mine was Rambo. And there's a lot of pictures of people in there. I wrote down trail names every day of people we met in my journal, and then I put them all in the book. And there's a few pictures of people too. So yeah.
And who gives the nicknames for the hikers? How you came up with the rainbow?
I did. Ronnie did. So Ronnie's was attitude indicator, which is an instrument in a airplane, and he was a commercial pilot. He became a commercial pilot when he came back, and he named me Rambo. And sort of after Rambo, the movie about the Vietnam War. And actually, one day I had two people. When I always stuck my hand out and said, my name is Rambo, and because I wanted them to tell me their trail name, and I would put it in my journal, right? And one day, twice this happened, I did that, and I go, "Oh man, yeah, I heard about you." And they put their arm around me, and they'd say, "I thought you'd be bigger." Because I'm only 5'8", 175 pounds. I'm not a big guy, and neither's Ronnie. And then the women would stand back and go big-eyed and just kind of stare at me. And that night, I asked my brother, I said, "Something weird's going on, bro." And I told him, and he's just shaking his head. And I said, "Come on, what's going on?" He said, "Well, I'm telling him that you're the guy that they made the movie Rambo about." I said, "Well, thanks. You're going to get me killed." So that was kind of a funny story. That's where that came from anyway.
Yeah, funny story now. I thought when you first told, I thought it's rainbow, like 7 colors of the rainbow.
No, it's
And that's
R-A-N.
why.
Yeah, it was R-A-N-D-B-O, and the movie was R-A-M-B-O. That's the one with Sylvester Stallone where he's like,
Yeah, I know. And when you
I
started to tell
was
it
never
is
like that
the
guy.
movie,
Trust me.
in any case, when you started to tell it's movie, I realized it's this rainbow and
Yeah.
not rainbow. So two different
That's funny
things.
too.
Yeah, and I had to ask why he gave you such colorful name, hiking
Yeah,
name.
actually, I never heard that name for a trail name. There's all kinds of them, though. They're funny, a lot of them.
And which name had your brother?
He was AI, attitude indicator. It's an instrument on an airplane. It tells you what position the airplane is relative to the horizon. him, it was like his attitude, he was suffering from the grief of his wife. He's trying to reconnect with God and understand why things happened the way they did. She had a stroke. She was paralyzed for 6 years before she passed. I mean, it was bad. And Ronnie took care. He wouldn't let anybody else take care of her 24/7. It's amazing. The love they had was unbelievable.
He was good husband from what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing. And after the trail, because you told that your brother decided to go on the trail after his wife passed, so he could find himself to reconnect with God, with nature, with you. So it took him 3 years to finish it. Did his life change after this? Did he felt better or more uplifting?
Yes. Actually, he had an experience on the trail, and there's a picture in the book of the day. It was Father's Day in 2018. That was a very gloomy day, and there's a picture in there of a bright, sunny halo right in the middle of the trail, and that was the only light that day. It was unbelievable, and he felt like Edie, his wife, was telling him it was going to be okay, that she was with our father, and that it was going to be okay, and that he was doing the right thing. And Ronnie felt different after that.
That's good to hear, because that was his reason to go on this trail, to have the experiences, so probably also to feel or to process the pain that he endured after he heard that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he felt like he was doing it for Edie, and it was a divine mission. I'll put it that way for him.
Yeah. And when you came along just to support him, but you also had your own experiences with bears and snakes and meeting other people on the trail and hearing their stories. So 3 years, almost 3 years, that is quite a time. So I'm sure your book has a lot of interesting stories.
Yes, it does. A lot of them are funny. Some of them are pretty serious.
Yeah.
And it does describe how I developed a spiritual relationship with a higher power that got me sober, and it made it possible for me to do this. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to help my brother. I would never have had that experience. And I'm still engaged in that, and I help men every day. So it changed my life completely.
Wow, that is amazing. Before we close, is there anything important you feel we haven't touched on?
No, Rena, I think you did a great job. Great questions, and you have a wonderful podcast. I've listened to it. I hope your audience likes our